Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jet airliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome in to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Quill. Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. We appreciate you taking Indiana Sports Beat along for the ride. Jake's at the wheel, keeping things on the track. Hope things are going well. Hit us up on the text line if you like, 812-269-6367. Big show, as always, today on the program. Scott Agness from The Athletic will join us. We'll talk about a myriad of things. Also, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers, the IU beat writer from CNHI, will join us as well. Yesterday, the Big Ten tournament baseball got underway. It was a weird day. If I could do an impersonation of Johnny Carson, it was wacky, weird day. I can't do it, but the top four seeds, there's only 8 teams in this tournament. Seeds 1, 2, 3, and 4, all lost. Omaha becomes upset city. Indiana, of course, the number 1 seed, being the Big Ten champion. They lost to the number 8 seed Iowa Hawkeyes, 4-2. Some good pitching shut them down. Number 7 seeded Ohio State one hits and beats arch rival Michigan, number 2 Michigan, 2-1. Number 6 seed Maryland, they beat number 3 Illinois. And the number 5 seed Michigan or Nebraska Cornhuskers, they beat number 4 Minnesota. What that does, it's a double elimination tournament. It puts the top 4 seeds all in the losers bracket, all playing today, 2 of them going home. Indiana will play Minnesota, and Michigan has to play Illinois. I tell you that really, Nebraska, to me, has the leg up over everybody here. They'll have the biggest crowd out there. Of course, it's in Omaha, Nebraska, but they're a number 5 seed. That's a pretty good 5 seed. They took 2 out of 3 against Michigan last weekend, helping Indiana win the Big Ten title. But all the top 4 seeds, they're behind the bus right now. They're not under it yet, but they're behind it, and the bus is backing up. A weird, wacky day. Indiana had 9 strikeouts. They took a 1-0 lead in the 6th inning, but Iowa came right back, put a couple on the board. They'd add a few more. They win that game 4-2. It's just a weird day, man. But that shows you baseball it's not as dominant a sport as most other sports. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And that certainly happened yesterday. We'll talk with Kevin Brockway about that. Got a lot of stuff coming up this weekend, man. Is this rain ever going to end? The Indianapolis 500, they'll have to put floaties on the cars. Maybe. Hope not, but.
Indianapolis Regatta.
Exactly. Good call, Jake. Indianapolis Regatta, you're exactly right, man. Today's carb day at the Speedway. Blow the engines out. Some big news, and I had a hint of this, and we'll be talking with him next week. Jeff Goodman reports UCLA coach Mick Cronin is on the verge of hiring former Nebraska assistant and Indiana basketball player Michael Lewis. I've been talking with Michael and about coming on again, and he had said next week would probably be better. I didn't ask, but I that was a hint to me that something good may be coming. I just let it lie, but that's a good for him. I hate that he's not coming to Indiana. I've said it all along. They need someone like Michael Lewis on the staff. And I know you can't just create a hole, but the fact that he's good enough to go to UCLA says a lot about him. I already knew that, but I think it's a mistake by Indiana not having someone with an IU connection on the staff, not a head coach. That doesn't matter, but I think that would. Plus, he's a good coach. He's intense. He's tough as nails. Happy for him. He's not long for becoming a head coach. But congratulations, if that in fact turns out to be true. Jeff Goodman reporting UCLA coach Mick Cronin on the verge of hiring former Nebraska coach Michael Lewis. I'd love to see that happen for Indiana. I think it would just be greatly beneficial in a myriad of ways. I mean, you talk about rebuilding the roster inside out. No better place to start than someone like a Michael Lewis, who played for Indiana, who showed toughness, who's from Jasper, Indiana. Wasn't Indiana high school great? But it is what it is, and I wish him the absolute best of luck. We'll be talking with him next week. Wow, what a move that would be. Moving to the West Coast to UCLA. Another Indiana connection on that UCLA staff. They go from having Steve Alford as a head coach to now potentially having another former great as an assistant to Mick Cronin. Big Indiana connection to UCLA. Of course, John Wooden, the longtime coach at UCLA, who won 10 national titles there from Martinsville, Indiana. So you can say that the foundation of UCLA basketball runs through Indiana, baby. Joker points out that the assistant job at UCLA probably pays more than a lot of head coaching jobs. Well, not a lot of big-time head coaching jobs, but it certainly won't be bad. Of course, it'll have to because the cost of living out there is substantially higher than, say, Lincoln, Nebraska, where he formerly was an assistant to Tim Miles for the last couple of seasons. Of course, Juwan Howard, officially named the head coach of Michigan basketball. He signed a 5-year deal with the Wolverines to replace John Beilein. So a little shake-up in the coaching world. What do you think about Michael Lewis to UCLA? What do you think about Indiana not having? Should Indiana have an IU connection on their staff? Hit us up on the text line. What do you think about that? 812-269-6367. I think that it would be a good thing. I think it would be a good connection. But that's just a thought, just an opinion. It's something that Greg Graham pointed out when he was on the show a while back, that he felt strongly about that.
It's not like there's not a lot of guys out there to be able to pick from either. I mean, there's a lot of Indiana guys that are either currently on a staff or are in between jobs right now that would be great on the sidelines at Indiana.
Absolutely. Dane Fife, of course, has been at Michigan State for 8-9 seasons now. You've got AJ Guyton. He's over at now he's at Maryland, Baltimore. He was at Northwestern before that. It's I'm a little surprised that Archie didn't do that from the start with his mantra of inside out. Not that he doesn't have quality guys on his staff right now. He brought in Ed Schilling, who was a former coach in Indiana and was at UCLA, ironically. So that's as close as you get. Now, Derek Elson's on that staff, but he's not an assistant coach. But you got Bruiser Flint that has former head coach experience. Tom Ostrom, who was with Archie at Dayton and has been with him for quite some time. But I'm still just I'm just surprised that that's not there with like Jake said, with all the availability. And man, Michael Lewis would have been, I got to be honest with you, Michael Lewis would have probably been at the top of my list for a number of reasons. He's a heck of a coach. He's a heck of a guy. You talk about toughness, that's the epitome of toughness. The epitome of toughness. But we'll see. We got a lot to get to on the program today. Scott Agness from The Athletic joins us. Kevin Brockway from CNHI. We'll talk with Kevin about IU baseball misfortunes yesterday and the Michael Lewis story. All that and more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this. We'll hear from Jamal Meeks.
Spending my money on other women, you taking money from someone else.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for it each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, you want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, and we are very, very fortunate to be joined by one of our favorite ball players from the past, Jamal Meeks. Jamal, how are you, man?
Awesome, brother. Awesome. How about you?
Cannot complain. I'm talking to you. It can't get any better than that.
Yeah, it really doesn't, dog. It really doesn't.
What's going on in the life of Jamal right now, man? What's going on with you? Where are you? What are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm enjoying life every day, bro. Every day. Every time I open my eyes, I'm enjoying life. I'm assistant coach, man, here at Monmouth University. I've been out here. This is starting my 5th season out here at Monmouth, and just recruiting, trying to get some players, trying to get players better, trying to make sure guys are in school, doing everything that comes with college basketball. So,
and speaking
just busy.
The kids today, they're way different than the era you grew up in and the people you played with. It's a different environment.
Yep, very different, very different. Yep, and I have to remember that, I'm an old dude now. And when I was a young dude, I was looking at the coaches, and they were old dudes. So I'm officially an old dude, and I get to try to pour some of life's lessons and knowledge on young dudes, which is awesome.
And I know that not everybody is like that. You still probably have some guys that are old school types, but how difficult is it to take the era that you played in, that you grew up in, and the coaches you played for, and to weld that into today's environment and today's kids?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, it's different just because, it's a different time, and I think that everyone gets the trophy thing kind of hurts a little bit, with guys just being competitive. Everyone got a participation trophy, so it kind of everybody's included. Well, not everybody gets to play at Duke, and not everybody gets to play at North Carolina. Not everybody gets to play at Indiana. So it makes it go crazy. And then everybody thinks they're that, and you have, a lot of guys have to work to get to that, with maturity and, and growth and all that type of stuff. So it's tough, and then the video game aspect of it now is different. With the graphics and all that stuff now, guys playing video games for 8 and 9 hours at a time, that's just different. When we were coming up, guys were taking those 8, 9 hours and they were trying to figure out how many parks they could play at that day. We're going to go play over here. We're going to play over there for a couple hours, see who's over there. Then we're going to go over here and play over there at this park, see who's over there. Then we're going to go over here and figure out who's playing over there and get it run over there. See, they don't do that now. They figure out who's going to get on the mic and see who's playing Fortnite.
And all these kids that they get boosted up through social media or whatever it is, and look back again, and not just your team and your errors, but that's a great example. The teams you played on, my God, the talent that was on those teams was 8, 9, 10, 12 deep that could start on any team in America.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's that's the thing that they don't get to see. They have no, they just have no concept of that. Just like, some of my uncles talking about Bill Russell when he was playing. You could see some of the film, but, I didn't get to see a whole seasons of him and watch him develop and do all that. So I didn't get appreciation for him until I got older and you watch more film and you see that type of stuff. And you're like, wow, Bill Russell was a killer. or Oscar Robertson, being in Indianapolis, and you see him, and he's like, man, this dude averaged a triple-double. This is crazy.
And do you
see how big he is and being a big guard like that. You're like, wow, he was a guard, point guard type dude, and he's 6'4", and big old body. Wow.
And do you think just because it's so long ago that kids today don't recognize those players as being as great as they actually were? I mean, they just were.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what era it was. They were just badasses.
Yeah, just better. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you try to explain that to guys. Everybody now is a pro, and everybody likes their social media to get likes for their posts. That's what it is. That's what we are now.
And when you go through, whether it's a coaching or recruiting or whatever it is you're doing, how much does the fact of you being a former player at a school like Indiana, or Indiana period, but at a school that is one of the most iconic names in the history of college basketball?
Oh, it's awesome. Now, I'm here now with with our head coach, King Rice, and his coach was Dean Smith. So think about all the knowledge there in Dean Smith's program. And then you got Indiana's program, and then we share stuff. And then we make it work for what we got now.
Do the kids respect that and understand that?
They don't understand it. They don't understand it, man. What kid does? You didn't. Being a snotty-nosed kid, you was thinking you couldn't think right past your nose when you were that young.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, same thing. It's just a different time.
And
same thing. We still got to grow them up. Still got to grow up.
And as hard as you guys work in recruiting and working with these players, how disheartening is it for you to see things happening like with the shoe companies and the FBI investigation and all that stuff? I mean, I know it's not completely new. A lot of that stuff's been going on forever.
You just get tired of it, man. You just don't want the game to get a black eye from some people that choose to do it that way. You just hate it, that part for the game, because the game is so sacred. And then when it's all scandal stuff with the game, man, that ain't good for the game. I mean, you hate that part of it.
What's next for Jamal Meeks? Just planning on hanging out at Monmouth and coaching? Are you are you wanting to move to become a head coach one day, or
one day I'll be a head coach. One day.
So that is something that you want to do.
Yeah, right now, man, I'm just trying to be the best assistant coach I can be right now. And then, we'll get to a point where I think I'll be ready, and I'll get to a point where I think I'm ready, and then I'll start getting that process going. So right now I'm doing all the practicing stuff. I got Chris Reynolds, who's the AD over at Bradley, and he doesn't know this yet, but now it's on the radio, so he's going to know. I'm going to call him and start talking with him, and, just so he can help me understand from an AD standpoint what I'm coming in to talk about and how I need to attack that and how I need to interview and all that type of stuff with him being an AD and what he looks for. So I'll be there to pick his brain to get some help with that.
Another fellow Illinois comrade.
Yeah, who's a brother of mine. So
a great
player. Help, so it helps me get better,
And just another name on that long list of incredible players that played in that era that you played for IU, man.
Yeah, one of my favorite guys, man. Yeah, one of my favorite guys. And then I'm sitting here talking to you, and Lyndon Jones is beeping in on my other line. So,
as far as being
that's kind of funny.
As far as being a head coach, you obviously you have an engaging personality, and that goes a long way in recruiting. But I know recruiting can get tiring. But do you enjoy that aspect of it?
Well, man, I always enjoy meeting new people. Okay, I always enjoy. You get one time to make a good first impression, right? So that's what you always try to do: give someone a great first impression of you.
Well, Jamal, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you being on here. You have been so generous with your time. I know you got things to do. You got to call Mr. Jones back.
Yep, got to call him. And I got a son that's over here. I had some steaks marinating, and his mom he just got in from AAU practice. So his mom's like, he's ready to eat. Can you turn the grill on? So.
Well, you better get to it. Tell Mr. Jones we'd love to have him on here as well. He was a great player. Loved watching him play.
Yeah, good friend of mine. Yep.
Well,
awesome,
Jamal, I can't thank you enough, man. I appreciate you joining us.
Sorry I had to bust your balls, man, a little bit for you early, but that was fun.
That is. I love it. We have a good time, man. It's all about it. That's why we love having you on.
Yeah, awesome.
Jamal, thank you, sir. Have a great day. Jamal Meeks joining us. That was a great time. I love always having a conversation with Jamal, man. He is funny as funny gets. I had a class with him back when I was in school. It was funny. It was one of the big 300 or 100 level classes where we had like 300 people in it. Sit down and Jamal Meeks walked by. It was funny. But we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat today on the program. Scott Agness from The Athletic will join us. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers, the IU beat writer for CNHI Papers as well. We'll talk about the story of Michael Lewis potentially going to UCLA with Mick Cronin. All that and more coming up here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for it each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on the Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Another rainy day in Bloomington. Man, got to get the floaties out. A lot of fear of rain interfering with the Indianapolis 500 this year. Today's carb day up in Indianapolis. I haven't looked at the forecast for Indy, but a lot of rain is expected over the next couple of days. I know there's a big wave coming through at the moment. I'm not sure wherever you are, if you're probably, you might be dry. But man, it's like 3 consecutive days of rain. Hopefully they'll get that in and without a problem. Hopefully they get the race in without a problem. It's a great opportunity for Indianapolis and Indiana to be shared around the world, as the 500 is such an international event. From the drivers that are from all over the world to the broadcast that carries all over the world. It's going to be on NBC for the first time ever. ABC had long been the home of the Indy 500. Surprised they gave that up. It's probably something they'll talk about with Scott Agness. There's, I'm not sure if you noticed, but the artist Drake was blasted for trolling
Giannis Antetokounmpo during Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Were they trying to stir up some Reggie Miller and Spike Lee action? Man, nothing could ever top that. That was the greatest. Especially when Reggie scored, 8 points in 30 seconds?
Was that game? I guess it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, that was, yeah.
That's kind of where that series, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people gave Spike Lee a lot of flack because of that. They said that you were edging him on because every time he'd turn around, he'd hit a shot, he'd turn around and look at Spike Lee going down the court. And, oh, man.
That's where the infamous Reggie Miller
choke
gesture came from, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was that was some classic must-see TV, man.
Reggie Miller was a killer, man.
Oh,
you wouldn't expect it just by listening to him, but man,
dude was funny. I love the personality. See, you just don't have. I don't think you have that anymore in the NBA. I think it's a different. I mean, get off my lawn, I guess. Don't want to go down that road, but
yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of guys with personality in the league now. If you watch Steph and Reggie are very similar in a lot of ways, like that.
It just seems a little different. But Drake's a super fan of the Toronto Raptors. They're still missing OG Anunoby, the former Hoosier star, who been out for a while with that emergency appendectomy. His potential return was probably only if they made the finals, and that was not even a sure thing. But on Wednesday, a tweet from a senior executive for Octagon, the agency representing Antetokounmpo, called out Drake for his repeated trolling of the Bucks in general and specifically their superstar power forward. He said, quote, "Imagine a gig and an athlete on VIP seats right next to the band stands up on the stage just to show off during the entire game, knowing cameras are on him, occasionally even messaging the singer," wrote, I'm not even going to try to say this dude's name. He's obviously from the same European background. Georgios Dimitropoulos. Man, he brought his own agent with him. Antetokounmpo's former European agent before he was named senior director for Octagon Basketball Europe. Well, he actually literally did bring the same one with him. Security and him both allow it. Never seen anything as disrespectful as this before. Well, then you didn't watch Reggie and Spike. The tweet has since been deleted. Drake responded Wednesday night on Instagram. He posted a photo of himself cheering on the Raptors, adding emojis of a smiling face, a salt shaker, and a person shrugging. He then liked a post from a follower that read, "Sports media needs to accept the simple rule that Miami Hurricanes signed into law back in the 80s. If you don't want the opposing team to celebrate and dance, prevent them from scoring, winning, or achieving their objective. Get over it and keep it moving." Now, he does bring up a good point. Can you imagine if Antetokounmpo, big 6 foot, what is he, 6'10"?
6'11". He might even be 7 foot.
Can you imagine him going when Drake is performing and standing there on the side of the stage mocking him? He'd be taken away by security. That's a hell of a point.
He was kind of out there too. Like he gave the Raptors coach like a shoulder rub after a big play, and I mean it was just kind of corny.
I mean, I don't think it should be taken. I think it adds a little bit of intrigue. I mean, look at Spike Lee and Reggie. That is infamous. You can't duplicate that, though. That was infamous. But that's a hell of a point. From an artist like that, what would happen if Anthony DeCampo stood up on the stage and was mocking Drake while he's performing? Security would have him out of there so damn fast, it's not even funny. That's a good point.
And just FYI, the game was pretty decent too, aside from all the other stuff going on.
Aside from the antics?
Yeah, there was an actual basketball game.
And an actual good one at that?
Well, I mean, it was good up until about the fourth quarter. Raptors ended up winning by 18, but yeah, it was a pretty good game.
Toronto wins 120-102. They were at home. That series is now tied 2 games apiece. That was on Tuesday. They play again tonight up in Milwaukee. Well, maybe Milwaukee will have to bring in Laverne and Shirley or
I was going to say,
Lenny and Squiggy.
Who's from Milwaukee that could come?
I'm reaching, brother. Laverne and Shirley is the first thing that popped into my head. Well, they could bring in some Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. He was on Game of Thrones the other day, or a couple weeks ago.
The show?
Yeah, he got burned up in a fire.
A cameo. My goodness, I wouldn't know it because I never saw a second of that show.
I haven't either. Well, I saw like maybe 5 minutes of it in the first season, and then somebody got their head cut off, and I was like, nope.
A little bit much for you?
A little bit.
Juwan Howard's the new coach at Michigan. A little Fab Five revival. That should make the rest of the Fab Five happy that they can get back to the culture that they didn't like. They didn't like the fact that John Beilein didn't sign McDonald's All-Americans, that he won 2 Big Ten titles and made 2 national championship games without them. But it's probably a good hire. You can't deny that. I mean, it's a splash hire. He's been in coaching. He doesn't have a collegiate head coaching experience, but that doesn't always mean the job can't be done. But we'll certainly find out. I mean, there's a lot that goes in. You got to be a manager now. You've got to be the head recruiter now. I having not been a college coach in recruiting, I can't testify that all that goes into it, but I know that there's a lot that goes into it. Of course, he has the ability of showing up and being Juwan Howard, of being a part of the Fab Five, of being a part of the NBA, of having played in the NBA. A little spillover from Memphis. I think the success that Penny Hardaway is having at Memphis played a big part in the hiring of Juwan Howard. That's just my personal opinion, but I think that the powers that be there, they look at Memphis. They come out of nowhere. They didn't get to have the success they wanted to under Tubby Smith, and then boom, he's bringing in recruits, no doubt. Now, how will this change in a few years when the rule changes? The NBA rule that we all expect us to change here within a year or two, that the one and done rule will basically be gone because it'll be wiped out. Will that change on how they recruit? Will that change all the recruits that come to school? They don't have to wait. How many of these guys would have gone directly to the NBA? I'd say quite a few of them. So the schools that are preparing themselves for that now may be much better off when that happens. Because when that rule does change here in about 2 years, those guys that are at the schools that aren't one and dones, they're going to be third-year players, fourth-year players. Veterans, that's what wins. We've seen it. Talked about it earlier. Michael Lewis reportedly going to UCLA under Mick Cronin. That would be a home run hire. Joker texts in. So the pipeline from Indiana to UCLA continues. Lewis recruited Indiana at Nebraska. Will continue to do so at UCLA. Yeah, when Ed Schilling was at UCLA under Steve Alford, he recruited Chris Wilkes to UCLA, a Mr. Basketball. And I'd say it'd be a lot easier to recruit to UCLA than it would be to recruit to Nebraska. I mean, there's still an allure to playing for UCLA. It's in Los Angeles, for gosh sakes. Big lights of LA. Showtime. What a recruiting tool that would be. Michael Lewis is definitely someone that I would love to see on the Indiana staff, if that opportunity were to arise. But I think that you need to have it, not just any, but the right IU connection on that staff. And I'm surprised that it just doesn't exist right now. I would have thought that would have been a priority from the start, but it hasn't been. And Michael Lewis would be at the top of my list. But it looks like now he's going west. We'll talk with Michael next week. That was already in the works, but we were texting yesterday, and I kind of knew something was up. But wish him the very best. He's a great, great guy. He's on a track to becoming a head coach. I would venture to say his next stop after, if he goes to UCLA, his next stop will be as a head coach. Now, prognosticating, looking forward, let's say that, and I'm not advocating this, but let's say Archie doesn't work out, that things don't go the way Hoosier Nation would like to have seen him go, and after 2 more years, there's a change. I would definitely think Michael Lewis would probably be at the top of the list, with the exception of someone like a Brad Stevens. Can you imagine that juggernaut? Brad Stevens is the head coach, Michael Lewis is an assistant.
Brad Stevens isn't coming back to college.
Yeah, I agree but I think that's something he'll do when he's done doing, when he feels like he's done that NBA thing and he's happy with it, which I don't think he's there now because he hasn't accomplished what he wants to accomplish. And he's a young guy. Hell, it could be 20 years from now, 10 years from now. But boy, what a juggernaut that would be. But regardless, Michael Lewis will be a candidate for virtually a lot of head coaching jobs once after this stint. He's definitely a head coach in waiting. You got Dane Fife, who's the head coach in waiting. I thought that he might be one of the top candidates for that Michigan job. People said, no, he didn't have enough experience. I'm like, well, he's got enough experience. He's got as much experience as Juwan Howard does at coaching. But actually, more, if you want to be honest with you, because he's done it under Tom Izzo at the college level in Michigan. He does not have the splash that Juwan Howard has. He does not have the NBA cred that Juwan Howard has. And that's where we've gone to. I mean, I think this is a direct reflection of the Penny Hardaway effect. I really do. And it's probably a good hire for Michigan. I don't know how he's going to do as a coach. I have no idea how he will be as a coach. It has definitely made a splash, and it will definitely land recruits. A different style of recruit than what John Beilein was bringing in, which John Beilein was doing quite fine at Michigan. He won two Big Ten titles. He made 2 NCAA tournament championship games. That is not a bad run. Especially when you add in the fact that he did it without the one and dones. He did it without these McDonald's All-Americans. Of course, he had Brzezikis last year, who was a one and done. Or it's apparently a one and done. The draft hasn't happened yet. Indiana baseball in the Big Ten tournament yesterday. Number 1 seed, they were taking on number 8, Iowa. They lose 4-2 in the first round, but that was a theme that carried through Omaha as the top 4 seeds all lost to the bottom 4 seeds. Number 2, Michigan loses to arch rival number 7, Ohio State. Number 3, Illinois lost to number 6, Maryland. And number 4, Minnesota lost to number 5, Nebraska, who I think is now the favorite to win that tournament. They're hot. They had lost 3 straight Big Ten series going into they played Arizona State a couple of weeks ago, a top 20 team coached by Tracy Smith, former coach of Indiana. They win that series. They follow that up with a series against Michigan, which they took 2 out of 3 against the Wolverines, coupled with Indiana's sweep of Rutgers, allowed Indiana to win the Big Ten tournament. But Nebraska's hot, and they're at home, basically. They're in Omaha. They're going to have a ton of fans out there. This certainly plays right into their hands, is making them the favorite right now to win this thing. It's a double elimination tournament, so all of these top 4 seeds are still alive, but they have to play each other today. Indiana will take on Minnesota, and Michigan takes on Illinois. So 2 of those teams are bye-bye. We've got a lot more coming up on the program. Scott Agness from The Athletic joins us. Kevin Brockway, IU beat writer from CNHI, does as well. Lots to talk about. Stay tuned. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Pick up all the pieces and make an island. Money, raise a little sand.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily, Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, you want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hey sports fans, this is Lily King. Make sure you tune into Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Hope your day's off to a great start. Got Jake at the wheel, keeping us on the track. Big program as always. Scott Agness from The Athletic will join us today. We'll talk to Kevin Brockway, the IU beat writer from CNHI Papers as well. Plenty to talk about. In the news, of course, Juwan Howard is the new coach at Michigan. A little shakeup in the Big Ten coaching ranks. You got the Big Ten baseball tournament going on out in Omaha. You've got Drake stirring things up in the NBA.
Indianapolis 500 is coming up this weekend, if they can get it in. A lot of rain has been falling in Indiana over the last couple of days. A lot of hope that the 500 will go off without a hitch. Today's carb day up in Indianapolis at the Motor Speedway. We'll see if they can get that in without a problem. The Big Ten baseball tournament happening out in Omaha, Nebraska has become upset city, as yesterday the top 4 seeds all go down. Indiana was the number 1 seed. They lost to the 8th seeded Iowa Hawkeyes 4-2 in this double elimination tournament. Indiana took a 1-0 lead in the 6th inning, but Iowa comes right back, puts a couple on the board, and eventually wins that game 4-2 as Indiana held to 5 or 6 hits, I believe. They had 9 strikeouts. Iowa got a great pitching performance. The number 2 seeded Michigan Wolverines, after having lost 2 of 3 to Nebraska in a series the week before to help Indiana win the Big Ten title, they lose yesterday to arch rival Ohio State, the 7th seed, 2-1. They were 1 hit in that game. Talk about not getting the bats going. The number 3 Illinois lost to Maryland, the number 6 seed, and then number 4 Minnesota loses to Nebraska, number 5 seed, the hottest team to me in the tournament. And to me, they're prohibitive favorite now, as they're at home basically. Lincoln right up being up the road from Omaha. They'll have a ton of fans there. And this is a double elimination tournament. So that means 2 out of the top 4 seeds will be eliminated today because they're both playing, all 4 playing in the losers bracket. Indiana will take on Minnesota. Michigan takes on Illinois. 2 of those teams are done after today. I don't have the times in front of me. See if you can get that pulled up, Jakey. But these games are being carried on the Big Ten Network. I don't think this hurts Indiana in regards to the seeding for the NCAA tournament. Now, it probably wouldn't look good if they got 0-2'd out. But I still see them as a number 2 seed probably. I think they land in Louisville, but that's just a proximity guess. It would certainly be wise of the NCAA tournament selection committee, because then you'd have a couple of good teams there in Louisville and Indiana regionally, which would draw very well. I mean, the Indiana-Louisville game will be sold out, no doubt. But we'll certainly find out today, because 2 of those teams are going home. Do you find it, Jake?
Yep, the times for today.
Yes, sir.
Illinois plays Michigan at 9 a.m. Indiana,
what?
Yep. Indiana plays Minnesota at 1 p.m. Maryland plays Ohio State at 5. And Iowa and Nebraska play tonight at 9.
9 a.m.
12 hours of baseball. Or
so
longer
that game
than
is, when a lot of people probably listen to this, that game will already have happened. So for those of you listening past 9 a.m., sorry. I don't have the results. I'm not Bastradamus. But the top 4 seeds, man, all go down in Omaha. Juwan Howard, the new head coach of Michigan basketball, 5-year deal. I have to think that this was greatly impacted by the success Penny Hardaway is having at Memphis. Juwan Howard having served as an assistant coach in the NBA, but has no head coaching experience whatsoever. I don't know that he's ever even been an assistant in college. And if that is the case, he doesn't really have recruiting experience either, other than his name. Penny Hardaway didn't have, you can say he didn't have recruiting experience, but that's probably not true because he coached the AAU circuit, and I guarantee you they're recruiting big time in there. But these guys are recruiting more off of their names and their success that they had as a player, not as a coach. I mean, Penny Hardaway does not have success as a coach outside of the AAU, which, again, those are all-star teams. That doesn't really do a lot for me. Juwan Howard's been an assistant in the NBA. What success has he had? None. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that. So kids obviously are not looking at that. Or not all of them. But when this rule changes for the NBA of the one and done situation where you will be able to go directly from high school to the NBA again, like it should have been, how is that going to affect these coaches like Juwan Howard, like Penny Hardaway, that are recruiting on their name and their past success as a player to players that are wanting to get to the NBA quickly? Because the majority of those kids that are going to Memphis right now, they've got their eyes on the NBA next season after one season in college. What's going to happen when they have to recruit guys that are 3-4 year guys and actually have to coach and actually have to develop players? They don't have experience doing that. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not saying it doesn't work because I don't know. We'll find out, but I think that's a big risk. I think Michigan's taking a risk because they're hiring on name. I know it made a lot of the Fab Five happy, but I don't really care what the Fab Five thinks.
They kind of did that in football too. Michigan did. They try to go out and find a Michigan guy.
Yeah, but the difference is Jim Harbaugh had been a head coach in college and
that's right, he was. He was at Stanford, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he'd also been a head coach in the NFL, not an assistant. He had head coaching experience, and trust me, head coaching in the NFL, that's a whole bunch of headaches. You talk about all kinds of management skills you got to have. But again, I'm not saying it's not going to work. There's just things to be pointed out. And that'll be fine for right now. But when that rule changes, the one and done rule changes, when you can't get those kind of recruits because they're heading straight to the NBA, and you have to recruit kids that are going to be there for 2, 3, 4 years, and you have to develop those kids and develop those teams, what's that going to be like?
Is there a timeline for that rule to change here in the?
It is dependent upon the next collective bargaining agreement of the NBA Players Association, I believe, and that can't happen. It may be next year. I think that could happen and go into play, and I don't know if that means it couldn't go into effect until the following year. But it's a year or two away from being able to happen. And most people fully expect that to happen. But that will change. That will dramatically change the landscape again of college basketball. And the teams that are recruiting these 3-4 year guys right now, well, when that rule goes into effect, if it does at that timeline, they'll be a 3rd-year player. They'll have 4-year players. They'll be ahead of the game. What happens to these teams that are full of these one and dones? Like Memphis just signed 7 recruits? What if 6 of them leave next year? He's got to go out and do that again. Okay. Well, what happens when they do that the year before that rule changes, and then the following year comes in and you got to do that? Well, that's not there to do. Now you got to recruit a 3-4 year player then, which means you have a couple years to develop him. That puts them behind the curve. Just a thought. We got plenty coming up on the program today. Scott Agness from The Athletic will join us. We'll also talk with IU beat writer Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. A lot to talk about. Stay tuned. We're back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
My girl and called me a disgrace.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. It's Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for it each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle with you as always. And as we are each week, we are fortunate to be joined by our good friend of the show, Scott Agness from The Athletic. Scotty, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Jim. How are you?
I was just trying to stay dry, man. Are you staying afloat with all the rain we've had?
I know. It's awful. And the only thing that really concerns me, and I think others this weekend, is the race. We need good weather for Carb Day on Friday. We need good weather for the race day on Sunday. I know some would want Memorial Day to be nice, but that's the second in line in my priority list. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the race, the Indianapolis 500, of course, what we're talking about. It's such a big, not just an Indianapolis thing, but it's a statewide thing. I mean, it's an Indiana thing. It's just an iconic event, period. Obviously, it's been going on for over 100 years, but it's such a big event. It's international, and it's a lot of eyes on Indiana and Indianapolis over this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's several little things that interest me. Of course, in the sports media world, it's NBC taking over the broadcast from ABC. So you got one of my favorites, Mike Tirico, hosting the whole thing. And NBC's really gone and done things big this week. We're seeing so many different people brought in to wave the green flag and things like that. Like Tom Hanks, he's in town right now to do those sorts of things. Weather, curious how that pans out, and also how we saw the Chevys really dominating qualifying. Will that continue?
And I know that the Today Show was there, I think. There's all, like you said, there's all kinds of things that are going on that they've really tried to incorporate. I mean, NBC is trying to make it a big, and the sheer fact that they took it from it, or ABC's not doing it anymore, that's a big deal. I mean, they've had that thing forever.
Yeah, and the concerning part, Jim, obviously, is why would you want to give it up? And it's clear that it just wasn't a valuable enough possession that it was worth their money or their interest or the time that it takes to produce such a quality event like that. And the reality of the situation is outside the state, there's just not much viewership. It is down dramatically. I know back when I was working on a radio show myself, while we had random guests on, talk about the NBA draft or whatever is going on, we'd throw in at the very end, tell me anything about the race, or are you following, or do you know when it is? And half the people would think it's NASCAR. So for us, we got to get out of our bubble a little bit and realize nationally, it's just not much of a story, sadly. And that's one thing that they really need to work on. And it can start by NBC in this race trying to capture a national audience.
And NASCAR suffered. I don't know how their TV ratings are, but I know from a fans in the stands perspective, they've suffered drastically as well. There's so many races that when they're on TV, if I see them, man, there's a lot of empty seats at those places.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of how TV is the valuable commodity. We see it in baseball and even in NBA games sometimes. TV runs everything. That's where the dollars are, and that's what provides the money for all this. That's why we see NCAA basketball games and bowl games that sometimes can be half empty when they're held in big sites and all that situation. One thing, Jim, I'm telling you, this is one thing the Speedway has to change, and they've got to lift the blackout. Now, this only concerns anyone in the central area. I think about 70 miles within the city. But that's how you grow the next generation, is you get people hooked on the race. You get people intrigued by the race. You sell it by TV. So a 6-year-old boy and a 7-year-old sister are watching the race and are like, Dad, I want to go to this. I think that's another big thing that's missing in all of this.
And you add to that exactly what you're saying, with NBC doing all those extra things on TV, it would certainly behoove the folks here close by that they get to see that.
Yeah, and I think my group is kind of perhaps the last generation that grew up with the race and not expecting it on TV. I know in my early days, I'd wake up, my parents were gone at the race, and then I'd watch all the breakfasts at the Brickyard. That's all what the TV shows are saying. I remember all this. They'd get home from the race, we'd get pizza, and we'd watch the whole race over again. And for us, of course, it was the first time. It's all about establishing the traditions and those little passions for kids and their families. And I think that's, for so many people in these current generations, that's what's missing.
Yeah, and I don't think that they realize right now that not keeping all these traditions, not just the Indianapolis 500. I mean, there's so many different things that when they go away and they're gone, then people look back and they start to miss them and whatnot. But it's too late, because once you lose the magic and you let it go, it's really hard to get that magical feeling back again.
Yeah, I see this as just kind of the blackout of being very short-sighted, in that it will keep us from selling tickets. Well, not really. To me, the Indy 500 is an experience. It's you want to go tailgate. It's you want to see the balloons. You want to see back home again in Indiana. You want to walk around and just be exposed to all the crazy things, the funny things, the nostalgia that comes with all this. It's truly an experience. It's not like you show up for 2 hours. You really make a full day of it. And so I don't think ticket sales would be drastically lowered because they aired it locally. And I'd love to see that change, at least on a trial basis. Give it a try for 5 years.
You mentioned baseball earlier. Indiana baseball played today. Since we've spoken last, they've won a Big Ten championship. Jeff Mercer's been named Big Ten Coach of the Year. Andy Saalfrank was the Pitcher of the Year. The IU baseball program is continuing to fly high.
Yeah, and I remember back when I was going to games at Simbauer Field, and this was basically just at the dorm rooms. And I had several guys on the baseball team on my floor, and they were just on the cusp of breaking through. Now it really feels, right, like this baseball team's broken through. They've won this Big Ten championship. They've gone to Omaha multiple times now. They've had coaches leave for better offers. Those are all positive signs in terms of a program, and I think now that's what they need for other programs to do in terms of IU sports. And that's something that I think IU graduates and current IU students can be very proud of, and hopefully the students continue to support it.
Yeah, they get great crowds at the Bart, man. Bart Kaufman Field, since they've been, you mentioned Simbauer, and it was basically a high school baseball field, and probably not a very good one at that.
Jim, I was going to say middle school. I've been to several high school baseball diamonds here in central Indiana. They're way better.
But Bart Kaufman's a great place to watch a game, and they get great crowds out there. The Big Ten tournament got underway yesterday out in Omaha. Unfortunately, Indiana on the losing end to Iowa, the number 8 seed. Indiana's the number 1 seed in that tournament. Iowa's number 8 seed, and they lost 4-2 to the Hawkeyes. Fortunately, Michigan and Illinois, 2 of the other top seeds, also lost yesterday. It was a weird day for Big Ten baseball.
Well, and fortunately, though, it's not single elimination. So they have an opportunity here to come back and fix what they messed up, right?
Absolutely. They play again later today, and we'll check in on that. Probably the biggest story going on here in the last couple of days has been the search for the Michigan basketball coach, which has come to an end because they named their guy in Juwan Howard, which he became a front runner. He had a lot of support from the quote-unquote Fab Five group, and some funny comments, I thought, from people like Jalen Rose and Chris Webber talking about getting Michigan back to a culture and talking about not having had McDonald's All-Americans under John Beilein, which is kind of ironic since he won 2 Big Ten titles in that time and the Fab Five won 0.
To me, I don't mind this hire, but it is curious to me because it completely goes away from what appeared to be everything that Beilein had established there, the culture of getting guys maybe that flew under the radar, not getting the Mr. Basketballs and not getting those 5 stars, yet creating a culture where you win, you graduate, and you have a successful program that now you could say has reached Final Four a couple of times and had a chance. To me now, this kind of perhaps is looking for a shortcut and follows a theme, Jim, that we've seen, I think, from so many other programs. Most recently, you look to Memphis with Penny Hardaway and Mike Miller. They're gobbling up all these 5 stars, but the proof will be in the pudding here over the next couple of years in terms of do they get guys to stay through? Because one thing we saw with Beilein is he had so many 4-year players. Now, occasionally he'd even push guys off the team a little bit and move on, but he did not have a ton of one-and-dones come through his program. So I'm glad Juwan Howard's getting an opportunity to coach here. I think he did, in fact, pay his dues for, I think, 6 years as an assistant coach for the Miami Heat. But this is a different beast. This is now a coach's world, being in college, and it's a key for him to surround himself with college coaches that have experience in recruiting, something he's never had to do, and coaching guys that are not fully mature, that are 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, he certainly had a lot of success. Speaking of John Beilein, not having those 5 stars, he won 2 big titles. He made it to 2 national championship games. That's a pretty daggone good run.
It absolutely is, and I don't fault him at all for wanting to try something new. That's kind of been his thing, is he moves on, and it seems like, Jim, that he's going to be a coach for life, much like we've seen from Larry Brown. This is just what he believes he's meant to do, and a reason he gets up each morning. It's what he thrives off of, and so an opportunity for Beilein now with the Cavs where not a lot of expectations. got some draft picks, and you got several guys on the roster currently, and probably many more to be added that really need developed in coaching, much like he did at Michigan.
Talk with our good friend Scott Agness from The Athletic. You mentioned Memphis, and I was my next question a minute ago was going to ask, do you think that had an effect on Michigan's hire of Juwan Howard, the success that they've seen Penny Hardaway have down there recruiting-wise?
Perhaps a little bit. I mean, how could it not to an extent? But at the same time, to me, this signals also the re-welcoming back of the Fab Five and that whole group. And you're seeing all kinds of support around the NBA for one of their own being hired into a position that's not based on skill and dominating other. It's based on their mind, ability to connect with players, and to strategically help craft young men. And so I think in Juwan Howard, he has that assistant coach pedigree, and he's one of their own. And it clearly seemed like that was meaningful in this coaching search, where not all the time that is necessarily the case.
Talk about recruiting. Well, look, Indiana is not having quite that same success right now. They've got a couple of great guys coming in, obviously, with Trace Jackson-Davis and with Armand Franklin, and you can add Joey Brunk to that. He's not a part of the recruiting class per se, but he's coming in regardless, nonetheless. And a lot of people are thinking, well, man, they're going to be short. The only thing that concerns me is having 11 guys on the roster, 11 scholarship guys versus 13, because of what happened to them last year with the rash of injuries.
Yeah, that's certainly of concern. I'm not one that at this early still here gets too concerned. I think they'd really like to add at least one more player, one more scholarship player, and then it wouldn't surprise me to get a couple walk-ons as well to the roster. But I think it's important for Archie Miller to build it the right way, the way in which he feels is right. And we just talked about perhaps a couple of schools rushing some things. That's not how you build a stable, long-term successful program. It might be a shortcut. It might work in the first couple of years, but I don't see that being sustainable. Something Archie is trying to do is just that. So for me, I'm holding back another year or two, reserving judgment on what Archie and his style, both in recruiting and coaching. But then the proof, we'll need to see something. We'll need to see them compete for a Big Ten title and get in on more of these players, I think, outside the state. Although, with that said, we also have to note how he's gotten Mr. Basketball in this state the last couple of years, and that was number one atop the list I know that Fred Glass wanted when he was hiring this current coach.
Yeah, he's really turned his focus back. A lot of the offers that you've seen go out for the 2020 class, a lot of Indiana kids in that class that they're looking at. And I know the fans, that's really important to them a lot. I had Brian Evans on the show the other day, and he talked about that as well. But one of the funny things is he brought to note was when he started out on the team, there were, I think, 11 of the 13 were Indiana kids. And when he left, 2 were Indiana kids.
Yeah, no, you want to bring back that core of Indiana guys, get the best of the best here. But then if you want to be an elite national program, I think you also need to grab a couple players nationally and bring all those guys together. And the one thing I'm curious to see here, Jim, with Archie is whether he really goes after the one-and-dones and what kind of success he ultimately has here. I know we see some programs stray away from it. Others have kind of joined in the chorus, like the Kentuckys, Dukes, and Memphis is here as of late. Can you have success without getting some one-and-dones? And although that may need to change here in the next couple of years, as we all expect the rule to change from the NBA, allowing players to go straight to the NBA out of high school.
Yeah, the one thing that he hasn't done, and he's talked, I've heard him say it multiple times, about not just using a scholarship for the sake of using it, and not to knock on, say, Tom Crean, but there were many times where he would pretty much just sign anybody. And I don't want to, again, knock on somebody, but Tim Priller was like the 350th ranked player in the country, and he got a scholarship to Indiana.
Yeah, that was a matter of, I think, him feeling a little desperate, knowing maybe his job was beginning to be in jeopardy, and he needed a big man. So, yeah, he threw out an offer for a guy that I know some people thought initially, some reporters that follow this stuff, didn't even report it because they didn't think it was accurate. They thought it was a joke that this kid got a commitment.
Hey, what are you working on that the people need to find in The Athletic from you?
Well, this is timely. So just posting here, coming up later today, will get a chance, readers will, to read about how, get this, Jim, the last 3 Indiana Mr. Basketballs are all hoping to be drafted right now. And obviously we've seen all kinds of success going back as recent as Caleb Swanigan in 2015. But then after that, the next 3, you're talking about Chris Wilkes, Kyle Guy, and Romeo Langford. All 3 have a very good chance of being drafted coming up in June. And so I talked to each of them at the draft combine.
That's an awesome story, man. What's your take on that? All those guys, has that ever happened before where 3 Mr. Basketballs have been in the same draft?
As far as I could find, not in the same class. Now, 9 of the last 11 all played NBA minutes, and 8 of them were all drafted, but not to the point where one class was loaded with them because they were spaced out a little bit more.
That's a pretty incredible thing, but make sure you find him if you're not a member. You probably need to get that taken care of. Scott Agness at The Athletic does a great job. Scott, I can't thank you enough, man. We appreciate you every week, brother.
Good to be on with you, and I should point out, since it is race weekend, Jim, just yesterday we added auto sports, so you can get Indy 500, IndyCar, and WNBA coverage now on The Athletic. So whatever you like, we've got it.
And I saw the follow-up on the WNBA that they had added an entire roster of writers specifically to cover the WNBA.
Absolutely. And so every team has one writer assigned to them. And I think what's really cool, too, is it's a woman covering this women's sport as well. So I think that's a real opportunity because so many women are already in broadcasting. There's so much competition, but not many have ventured into journalism, into writing. And so maybe this is one way that'll expose everyone, especially young girls, that's an opportunity if they want to choose that route.
Yeah, and if it's funny is I recently had a conversation with the new Indiana soccer coach, women's coach, and he's from Europe. And I was talking to him about the differences between there and over here. Obviously, we know that soccer is a mainstay in Europe. It's the number 1 sport in the world outside of the United States, but it's slow catching on here. But he talked about when he first came over coaching guys, and they weren't really that good. He'd go back over there and coach guys, and they could really just dominate over here. But he said when he came over to coach girls, he was surprised. He goes, the girls were much better over here than they are over there. And obviously, to me, it's because of the Title IX and everything. But that was just something I never thought about.
Yeah, there's so much talent. The one thing I push to people is just give it a chance. May not be for everybody, but you know what? It is so talented. I grew up and actually worked for the Fever in the league for 10 years, so I know all about that. And it's really fun, and they play hard every single night. It's fun to watch. And the season's starting here soon.
Absolutely. Make sure you find him, Scott Agness, in The Athletic. Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, talk to you later, Jim.
Have fun at the race. Scott Agness from The Athletic joining us as he does every week. That'll wrap it up for right now. We'll be back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat. Right after this, back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios.
The city of the stars, movies, women, and cars. Well, I guess I'll stop. Say, hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. What you got to say?
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. It's Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for it each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios, joined by our good friend Kevin Brockway from CNH Papers, IU beat writer. Kevin, how are you doing, brother?
All right, good morning.
It is definitely a wet one today, as it has been for the last couple of days, man. Hope that doesn't affect the Indianapolis 500. Today's carb day, blowing them out a little bit today up on the track if it stays dry.
Yeah, well, that would not be good if you had some rain delays there, but it should be a pretty festive weekend up there in Indy.
Yeah, if they can get it in, it'll be a big time, as it always is. An international event brings a lot of attention to Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it should be an interesting field, and hopefully, like I said, no problems, no delays.
A couple of big things in basketball, man. One of the not necessarily big for a lot of people, but I saw that Mick Cronin is probably going to be hiring Michael Lewis as an assistant at UCLA.
Obviously, that played on what Bobby Knight's last team in Indiana, and one of his last teams, and I actually covered him in minor league basketball back in the day when he was in Naples, Florida, playing for a team called the Florida Sea Dragons in the USBL. But I always thought that Mike was kind of a heady, scrappy player, and it's worked out. He's had a nice career in coaching, and that's great that he's going to a storied program out there, UCLA. John Wooden, as we all know, they're a program that's probably hit on some hard times the last decade. Have really been up and down. 10 years ago, Ben Howland got him to 3 Final Fours, but haven't won a national title since Jim Harrick in '95. So I think that's a good move for him.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a good move for anybody. As a matter of fact, I've talked about it here of late. Greg Graham was on a while back, and he really pointed out the fact that he thought that not having an IU guy on the staff hurts Indiana, and or not necessarily hurts them, but they could do a lot better if they could. They had someone on there, and I think Michael Lewis is a top candidate for that spot. Unfortunately, there's not an availability there, and that opportunity hasn't popped up. But I think it's a home run for Mick Cronin, because so much of the UCLA history is basically tied to the state of Indiana. I mean, you go back to John Wooden being from Martinsville, Indiana. And then recently you had Steve Alford as the head coach. You had current IU assistant Ed Schilling as an assistant out there. He brought Chris Wilkes out there, former Mr. Basketball, who was in this year's NBA draft. Now you have potentially Michael Lewis, another Bob Knight disciple, going out to UCLA. So a great portion of the UCLA history is tied to Indiana.
Yeah, no doubt there's Midwest ties when, and it was interesting when Wooden went out there, he was, he had a lot of unsuccessful seasons in the beginning at UCLA. People don't realize that, in today's day and age, he probably would have been let go. It really took him a while to get that program going. But obviously once he did in the 60s and 70s, he had a dominant run, but it was not easy for him, to get UCLA off the ground, but when they did, they took off and created a dynasty that is unlike any other right now in college basketball. What they were able to accomplish in the 60s and 70s, obviously a different time, a different era. But he obviously got the great Big Ben and Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton and just took it and ran.
Juwan Howard, a big name, of course, named the head coach at Michigan. Kind of a move I think is predicated in part by the success Penny Hardaway's having at Memphis.
Yeah, I think with Juwan, a Fab Five guy and a guy that a lot of players, younger players, through YouTube or what have you, still revere the Fab Five. They still idolize those players for what they meant to college basketball, not just on the court, but off the court, and, the baggy shorts and the style. And he's a Michigan guy. It's really interesting to think now because of, I don't know how many people forget this, but, those titles were vacated because of the Ed Martin scandal. And Juwan probably wasn't as wrapped up on that as other Fab Fives, players, but maybe this will bridge or help heal some of those wounds that were created, because when Jalen Rose did that documentary, it sounded like that there was, some bitterness, and Chris Webber, wouldn't come back for a while.
Well, he wasn't allowed back. He was not allowed back. They
were not allowed back for like 10 or 15 years, but then even after that, Chris Webber wouldn't come back. So I think, perhaps this move will heal that somewhat, but I think more importantly from a basketball sense, I think he'll be able to recruit pretty well. I think the big question, and I tweeted this yesterday, is this is a guy with no head coaching experience. He's an assistant with the Miami Heat in the NBA. But going to the Big Ten without head coaching experience, when you have guys the likes of veteran coaches like Tom Izzo and Matt Painter and some guys that are pretty accomplished, to ask someone to do on-the-job training, that's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, not only that, they're talking about reviving this culture. And I keep asking, what culture is that? The culture that was known for cheating, the culture that was known for having the wins vacated, like you talked about. They didn't win any titles. They didn't win the Big Ten. Indiana won the Big Ten. They didn't win the national championship. They didn't win anything as far as the title goes, and they were somewhat lamenting the lack of McDonald's All-Americans brought in by John Beilein, which makes me laugh because the fact that he won 2 Big Ten titles, he got to 2 national championship games. Without that, says a lot about coaching and a lot less about splash recruiting.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's ridiculous. It is what it is. And I think it's generational, right? Our current generation doesn't understand it. But I think with the advent of the internet, recruiting coverage, everyone goes nuts over it. I've covered a lot of basketball. I've seen plenty of 5 stars flop. I've seen plenty of 2 and 3 stars go out and become stars and become really great players in college basketball. So that whole thing doesn't hold much weight. Is it nice to get a McDonald's All-American? Yeah, it adds a little bit of prestige to your university when you get one, but it's about building a team. I mean, come on. I mean, how do you explain Loyola Chicago a few years ago? How do you explain, you give me a cohesive core, guys that play together for 2 or 3 years, and that's what's winning right now. There was Duke in 2015, with a bunch of one and dones. There was Kentucky in 2012. They had a transcendent player in Anthony Davis. But even Kentucky in 2012, people don't forget that, they had Darius Miller, who was a senior, who helped guide them a little bit. So you need that experience. You need guys that are going to be able, and John Beilein did that. He built cohesive teams with cohesive cores, and they made great runs in 2013 and, 2018 last year in terms of getting to the national title game. So to say that John Beilein, didn't get enough McDonald's All-Americans, that's ridiculous.
And I look at the fact that what happens in a couple of years, within a year or two, when this NBA one and done rule changes, and these guys that are recruiting these one and dones and they have to replenish it each year, the schools that are recruiting the 2, 3, 4 year players and are that season when that rule changes and they've got 3 and 4 year players on their rosters, and these teams that have been recruiting these one and dones are having to replenish, what's going to happen with them when they actually have to coach and actually have to develop talent?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating. And the year 2022, I think, is the year that is kind of the target date for that in terms of the NBA changing the age rule. And if it does, Jim, it's going to be really interesting to see the recruiting landscape from the sense of who do you recruit, right? How do you know if a guy, there could be guys at the last minute to say, oh, I want to throw my name in the draft. So I think coaches, it's going to be really tricky throughout college basketball in terms of getting the most talented players you can, recruiting a guy, but making sure that he's not going to bolt on you. I remember, back in 2000, Billy Donovan recruited Kwame Brown, and about a month before he was supposed to step on campus, he decided, oh, I'm going to, go to the NBA draft, so you lose, one of your really great players that you were expecting in that recruiting class. So it can happen. And, if they change the age range. So I'll be curious and fascinated to see what it comes about down the pike in maybe 2022 or 2023.
Scott Agness from The Athletic was on with us today, and he pointed something out that I didn't really realize, but it's a very unique fact. The last 3 Indiana Mr. Basketballs are in this year's NBA draft: Chris Wilkes, Kyle Guy, and Romeo Langford.
Yeah, and that says something about the talent of the state. And it says that, it's important to lock down the state and find the right guys in the state. And Archie certainly got one of those guys in Trace Jackson Davis, but Keon Brooks is a guy that we discussed that hopped the border and went to Kentucky from Fort Wayne. You would have loved to have them both in this class. So I think that balance of getting those, great stud guys and also recruiting a little bit nationally. If you take a look at Bob Knight's career, he did it mostly with in-state kids, or he would sprinkle in a kid from Ohio and Illinois. And Archie certainly is a guy that, as we know, is, going to try to build it in state. He's got 2 guys, and Armand Franklin and, Trace, and also Joey Brunk, who's an in-state kid as well, the grad transfer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of attention being focused on 2020 now, and 2020 is probably going to be a gigantic class for Indiana because Archie has the 2 remaining scholarships that are open that at this point looks like they're just going to be banked and kept for next year when he has a better foothold onto that class, I'd say. But it's kind of unusual to see a team hold 2 scholarships, but that's how it's working out, and it may work out to his benefit. But it would sure be nice to have the bodies, especially you look at last year. Indiana was beset by injuries with an unbelievable amount of injuries. If that were to happen next year when you have 2 less scholarship players, that could be pretty detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, depth is important in this game, as we know, and depth for practice, too. You want as many scholarship guys as possible in practice because that's what gets you better throughout the course of the season. You want those guys going at each other, and you want to be able to have physical practices, too. You don't want to be able to hold back necessarily. So that all factors into it. But 2020, but as you know, for as much as I've said, I'm not too high on recruiting, but by all accounts, from the people that follow it closer than you and I, 2020 is supposed to be a really talented class, more talented than this year. So perhaps Archie and the staff are, maybe banking on that and thinking that this is going to be a class where you've got more guys that are going to be potential impact players.
Absolutely. We got a text in from the text line. Tim says, I think most players will still go to college for a year unless you're a Zion Williams. Even Romeo said he wasn't ready for the NBA right out of high school. Thinks 1 year at IU with Cliff Marshall's teachings and the competition helped him get him and his body ready. And I agree with that, but I'm not sure that the kids will because, in a conversation I had with Brian Evans and he talked about how these kids are really, it's changed. They're really pushed to the NBA sooner. He talked about kids that should stay longer, but it's different today. They're pushed into the NBA by those around them, not necessarily themselves, but their handlers and whatnot.
Well, you got to think there's some financial pressure on some families. Every family is different, I think, in that regard, Jim. But I think, too, that it's just, kids today, though, are bigger, faster, stronger. There's better technology in terms of, getting them prepared to make that jump. But, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, there are plenty of guys that did it certainly before the one-and-done rule and that were successful. And there's the thought that if you learn and you develop even on an NBA bench, maybe it's for that game, maybe it's better than going to college. You might have to suck it up for a year. And you've got the G League now, which is, kind of acting as a minor league. And if your ego can handle it, you could even, go there for a year or two. I think that's, the interesting, aspect to this is that you have a minor league structure in place now, maybe that you didn't have 20 or 30 years ago, where guys can go and develop and get better. And that's kind of that's the way that it could work out for them.
Plus, Bill texted in a very accurate statement. The Beats and the Babes are a big recruiting tool for UCLA. That's always going to be a great recruiting tool. But I think Mick Cronin could be a good fit for them. And you bring in a Michael Lewis. He's a hard worker. Midwest can bring out a lot of talent because Chris Wilkes went to UCLA. The current IU assistant, Ed Schilling, was on the Alfred staff, and he brought Chris Wilkes out there. So it's definitely can be a talent drain somewhat. It's still a good spot for people to go to.
Well, UCLA is a national program. It's a national brand. There's great talent in Southern California too, though, within 100-mile radius of the campus as well. You can really get some great players there. And, obviously the Holiday brothers and Aaron Holiday right now, who's with the Pacers and played in the G League and Fort Wayne there. Those guys were Drew Holidays. Those guys were all UCLA guys that are California guys. So while it's great to get those players from the Midwest, you can get a lot of players within California too. And Michael Lewis, I'm sure he'll be fighting that traffic on the 405 and the 105, going down to a lot of those high school games there and trying to pluck guys. And the one guy from Southern California they missed that went to San Diego State when Steve Fisher was out there was Kawhi Leonard, who's obviously still in the NBA playoffs with the Toronto Raptors, but a lot of great talent in that Southern California region too.
You can find him on Twitter at Kevin Brockway G1. He's with CNHI Papers. Kevin, I thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Kevin Brockway is going to wrap it up for us today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Todd Leary will be with us. Thanks for Jake for keeping us on the track. I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.